Hello everyone. Before we get started with block number 11, I just have a friendly reminder for you today. I went to start sewing on my block number 11 and it dawned on me, it's been some time since I paid some good attention to my machine. Now usually I'm really good about taking care and maintaining my machine because this is one of my babies. I've had this machine almost 4 years and it is a workhorse. Now eventually I would like to upgrade to a machine that has some features that this machine just doesn't have. But in the meantime I like to take really good care of her because she has made some wonderful quilts and a lot of them. And I don't usually have any issues with her. That means I need to take care of her. And it's been some time. Let me show you a picture of what I found. And I feel really bad. I'm sorry. However, I will say that this machine has a temperament that it does not like working after it's been freshly cleaned and oiled. She makes all kinds of weird squeaking noises. The threads want to act funny, and so it's like a spoiled rotten pet after you give it a bath. It wants to pout for a little while, but then she starts acting right again. It's like she grows an attachment to her dust bunnies. However, as a good parent, I need to make sure to keep her clean and to keep her functioning as well as possible. So that means cleaning her out and making sure to oil it. You know, it doesn't really matter if you got your machine at a yard sale or thrift shop. Maybe it was given to you. Maybe you bought it at Walmart or Joann's or a quilt shop. No matter what, they all work the same and they all need the same kind of maintenance. They need to be cleaned out and oiled. And if you haven't changed the needle in your machine, you would be surprised at what putting a new needle in would do for your quilt work. Ask me how I know. I tend to be very tight when it comes to changing rotary blades and putting new needles in. However, I love the results when I do, and so I'm also saying this to remind myself. Clean your machines. Change out your needles. If it's been some time since you've done either one of those, maybe today is a good day to take care of all the little maintenance things before you get started. Alright, enough lecturing. We're on to block 11, and you'll see the reason why you should clean out your machine. Let's go. Alright, now that we have all of our maintenance done to our machines, you know, if you'd like to share a picture of what you just cleaned out of your machine, I would love to see it over on my Facebook, and so I don't feel so bad for the neglect I have given to my poor sewing machine. Let's go ahead and open up the binder for block number 11, and this only means that after this week we have one more week of sewing blocks together. This was last week's block. Block number 10 was called Tulip Garden. We did lots and lots and lots of piecing and some applique work in the center. Let's take a look at block number 11. Now, this block is called Flowers and Friends. It is almost like having 7 blocks in one. If you are interested in this pattern, it is a free pattern this week. The pattern link will be in the description box below for block number 11. I'll also put a link to all the other blocks in case you are just joining us. 1, 2, 3, 4 applique patterns, and then a paper piecing square in a square pattern, and we're making 3 of those. When finished, this block will measure 18.5 inches wide and 24.5 inches long, so it's also a long block, much like last week. Not quite as big. Let's go ahead and take a look at the placement for block number 11. If you have been mapping along, go ahead and cut out your block number 11, found somewhere inside your pattern. The placement for block number 11 is right in this top right hand corner. It should fit in there very nicely. So now we have this whole section done, and this will be our block next week. Look, we are almost done. It is coming together so nicely. Let's take a look at this pattern. Let's see, of course you have your cover sheet and applique instructions. With this pattern you will have 4 sheets of applique templates. Alright, each one is for a different block. So there is your bird, there's one flower, there's the other flower, there's a slight difference, and a butterfly. Each one of them has its own little placement guide on the sheet. And then we have the square and a square paper piecing portion of our block. And I'm trying to find my ruler. Let's talk about this for just a second. Because when you print this out, if you select in your printer settings print to actual size, it should print right at 6.5 inches exactly. See that? That's a 6.5 inch ruler, and it fits perfectly inside that. So when you cut this template out, just like this should measure 6.5 inches. And that's important if you want to keep your little points within the square and a square. There's little seams right in there. Make sure they're in there when you cut this out. It's at 6.5 inches. And then of course we have all of our requirements. So let's go ahead and pull everything I have and talk about what we need for this block. Alright, now these are the things that you're going to need in order to complete block number 11, Flowers and Friends. You'll need 4 background blocks that measure 9.5 by 9.5, and I have mine pre-cut here, just like that. You're going to need scrap fabrics that are larger than all of your template pieces on all 4 of your applique sheets. I have already pre-cut all of mine. You can see there's tons and tons of pieces. This block should keep you pretty busy, I would think. And see why I said to make sure your machine is in good working order. We're going to be doing lots and lots of stitching this week. I have all of these colors of embroidery thread to sew down all of my applique. Of course, that is all up to you and what kind of threads you like to use, but I have all of those ready. And then you will need scrap fabrics that are larger than your paper piecing template, each one of the positions of your fabric map here. So just like that. Now I think what I'm going to do this week, because we could be here for a long time watching me sew all of these pieces down and you've seen me do this several times now in the videos. I think I will turn the cameras off, turn on some music, and enjoy the process of stitching all of my little pieces down on my 4 individual blocks. We will come back then and focus on doing the paper piecing portion of this block. You're going to actually make 3 individual square and a square blocks and then piece them together to make a unit. Let's take a look at what that looks like on a finished block. Let's scoot everything to the side. And once again, I have a block that does not all fit into the screen. You can see my butterfly and one of my flowers. Here's another flower and my bird. Isn't that so cute? I love that. And then we have our square and a square, each one done individually and pieced together. So the foundation of this block is easy. You applique your 4 individual blocks and put them together much like a 4-patch. Put these 2 together, these 2 together, and then join them in the middle right there. Once you have that done, you put together your 3 square and a square blocks, join those together, and it gets attached to the bottom of your applique pieces. So I'm going to go have some fun and stitch down all of these little applique pieces now that my machine is nice and clean, if she wants to cooperate, since I took all of her dust bunnies away. And we will come back and focus on the paper piecing for this block. I am all done stitching around each one of my appliques, and I have put together all 4 blocks just as you see here. You can see I matched up my center right there, and everything lays nice and flat. I pressed my seam allowances in opposite directions, and so everything lays nice and flat. Now we are ready to begin our paper piecing portion of this block. So gather your fabrics and your template and let's begin. As we get started, we're going to start with placement number 1. I'm going to give this fabric just a quick press. I'm using denim. I just want it to lay nice and flat as we begin. I've already pre-folded all of the sewing positions between 2, 5, 3, and 4. And I'm going to use a glue stick and just place a small amount of glue right in position number 1. And with the pretty side facing up, I'm going to lay the denim right over position number 1, making sure your fabric goes past all of your sewing lines, and just give that a quick press with a hot iron, just long enough to dry the glue. And that will keep your fabric on your map long enough so that you can maneuver and sew in all of your 4 other pieces. At this point, we will fold the map back and trim all 4 sides to 1/4 inch all the way around. And that just gives us a good guide to help us align the next pieces that we will add. This method of paper piecing is perfect for using up small bits in your scrap stash. Again, we are just trimming right along. And next we will add fabrics 2 and 3. And I like to just bring both of those pieces of fabric to the sewing machine and sew them both while I'm there. See how nice and pretty that's coming along? Next, we will just align up our trimmed edge with the edge of fabric 2 and bring that right to the sewing machine, just like that, and sew right next to your paper fold from edge to edge. I am back now from attaching pieces 2 and 3. I just sewed right next to the paper fold from edge to edge, and now we can apply a little bit of glue in position 2 and 3. Open up our fabrics and give them a quick finger press, and then come in with the iron, heat set and dry the glue, and press our seams all at the same time. Just like that. And now we will bring this back to the cutting mat. We are going to trim the little ears that hang past our 1/4 inch just to tidy this up, keep everything nice and neat. See those little bits hanging over? We're just going to take care of those and get them out of the way. And then we will be ready to add fabrics 4 and 5. And trimming as you go like this, it just eliminates a lot of bulk in your seams and gives you a nice flat block when you're done. See how we're coming along? And now we can add our fabrics for position 4 and 5. Fold the paper towards you. Line up your straight edge and bring that to the machine just like that. Okay, I'm back from sewing positions 4 and 5. Again, we're going to place a small amount of glue right in position 4 and 5. Open up our fabrics, give a quick finger press, and then press everything nice and flat with a hot iron. See how perfect that square is? That's why I love paper piecing. We're just going to dry that glue really fast and press those seams. Now at this point, you're ready to flip everything right side down, and you can actually use your paper as a guide to trim your block. You can use, of course, a straight ruler. You could use scissors if you really wanted to. I'm going to bring in my 6.5 inch square ruler and line that up and just give this a quick trim all the way around. I've had this Fiskars spinning, rotating cutting mat for about 2.5 years. I really like it. I don't use it a lot, but for small little pieces like this, it comes in really handy when you really want to try to avoid moving your fabrics around that you're cutting and you want to make sure everything stays exactly where you want it. This is very nice to have. Just rotating around, again trimming to the exact edge of our fabric map. And what's great about this is now we will have our little points that have an extra seam allowance on there, so that when we sew together each 3 of our blocks, we should keep our little points of our square in a square. See the extra? That will be your seam allowance. Look how pretty! Now you can just gently tug at the paper behind your fabric. And except for right there, I accidentally sewed through the paper. If you don't sew through the paper, it should just gently lift right off. But doing my paper piecing this way, I don't have to rip at my seams, and I can keep reusing this fabric template, the fabric map, over and over. Look how pretty those all those seams are. And we have an exact block. Now we make 2 more. And here we have all 3 of my pieces already done, and everything's pressed and ready to go. Now we're going to piece these together, making careful note to line up your points right in those seams, so hopefully you don't lose the little point in your seam allowance. Match it all up. I like to glue baste mine, but you could certainly put a pin right in there to make sure it stays where you want it to stay. And line up those points. Assemble all 3 blocks and we will come back. I am back from piecing together my 3 square and a square units. Now that is one complete unit that we will attach to the bottom of our 4 patch of applique units. So we would just flip that right on top of our applique. And I just like to make sure to line up the center point of my square and a square with the center seam of my 4 patch of applique blocks. You could put a pin in there or glue base that into place. Sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance and then press when you're done. And here we are. My block is completely finished. Of course, it does not all fit in the frame, but I think it turned out fantastic. I did not add any stabilizer to the back side of my clothing. Because of that, it was a little wonky to work with and a little stretchy, and I think I would have had an easier time achieving my points if I had been using a regular cotton fabric. However, I think it turned out fantastic and I love it. I'm going to show a picture right here of my complete block, and that way it can all fit in the frame and you can see what this block looks like all as one unit. But I love the little patterns. I think this should keep you busy through this week. And then guess what? We have one more block to do before we are assembling a quilt top together. Now, if you have any questions about any of these patterns, you can jump down to the comment section below this video. I will try to be as timely as I can. I will be on vacation when this quilt block comes out. I will be in Vermont and our Wi-Fi signal is hit or miss, and so please be patient with me. And if you have issues downloading from Dropbox, I will not have access to my computer until we return in a week, and so I ask that you be patient until I come back if you are not able to download from Dropbox, because this pattern is in my Dropbox. You'll find the link in the description box below. So some exciting news. I have worked ahead on one of my quilts and assembled my whole quilt. We leave for Vermont next Tuesday, and I have 3 days to quilt this quilt, and so no pressure. But I will be entering this mystery quilt into a quilt show at the Bonneville Fair in Vermont, and I'm super excited. Who knows what will happen, but if anything, I'll get to display this memory quilt and display all of the work that went into it, and I'll get to tell the people who visit the quilt show there about this pattern, and all of you who are making the quilt along with me. And so I'm really excited about that, and we'll see if this quilt does anything at the show. Who knows? Either way, I'm completely happy with it, and I just really want to show everyone all of the work that went into making this quilt. I will be putting a picture of my quilt block 11, on my Facebook page. And if you complete block 11 and you'd like to share your picture, you can go to that post on my Facebook page, or you can jump on over to my group through my Facebook page. It's Lisa's Quilty Friends. I do think I'm going to change the name eventually. I haven't figured out a snazzy, cute, catchy name for it yet. But on that group, it's very easy to share your pictures of not only the mystery quilt, but anything that you're working on, whether it be with needle and thread and fabric, or paper, or beads, or any kind of crafty thing you are doing. We would love to see your pictures there. I've thoroughly enjoyed this week. I'm glad I cleaned out my machine, and I'm hoping that maybe you have done some tender loving care with your machine as well. And I look forward to seeing you next Sunday for our last block, and maybe then I will have some news about how we did at the quilt show. So until I see you next Sunday, have a great week and have lots of fun.